In the silence before the dawn, when the last stars fade and the wind holds its breath, there is said to stand a mountain no human eye has ever seen. A mountain that encircles the world, shining not with sunlight but with an otherworldly glow, as if its peaks were carved from emerald and flame. The ancients called it Mount Kaf, the final boundary between the world we know and the realms that lie beyond. Some say it is the spine of creation itself, holding together the fabric of all existence. Others whisper that it is the wall between the living and the unseen, a veil where the realm of man ends and the dominion of the Jinn begins. From which country are you watching this video? Subscribe to this channel if you love Islam. Those who spoke of Mount Kaf did so in reverence and fear. The Persian mystics described it as a mountain made not of earth or stone, but of green crystal, invisible to the eyes of those who dwell in the material world. It is said to rise beyond the farthest horizon, its roots woven through the unseen, its summit touching the edge of the divine throne. Every mountain on earth, they said, is but a shadow of Kaf, mere reflections of its heavenly peaks, scattered across the world, to remind mankind that there are realms beyond comprehension. Some scholars wrote that Mount Kaf was not a place, but a boundary of perception, a hidden barrier placed by the Creator to separate the physical world from the spiritual, the seen from the unseen, the human from the Jinn. Throughout history, seekers of truth, mystics, and wanderers have sought the path to Mount Kaf, believing that beyond it lies the source of all knowledge. But those who claimed to approach it were never the same. Their words became riddles, their eyes distant, as though they had gazed upon something the human mind was never meant to comprehend. In ancient writings, it is said that the air near Mount Kaf hums with the sound of creation itself, a sound that can drive a man to madness or revelation. The winds that circle it carry whispers from other realms, voices of beings made of smokeless fire, reciting verses and oaths older than mankind. Those who dared venture too close would vanish, leaving behind only echoes and the faint scent of something not of this earth. In Islamic tradition, Mount Kaf is believed to encircle the entire world, forming the invisible horizon that separates this life from what lies beyond. Some say it is guarded by angels of unimaginable power, stationed there since the beginning of time to protect the balance of creation. Others believe that it is the place where the Jinn built their first kingdoms, where ancient covenants were made and broken long before Adam set foot on earth. It is said that even the prophet Dhul Qarnayn, known for traveling to the ends of the earth, looked upon Mount Kaf and declared that beyond it lies the domain known only to Allah, a place no mortal may tread. There are moments, however, when the veil thins, when the spiritual world brushes against the physical. Some say it happens at twilight, when day and night embrace. Others say it occurs in deserts and lonely mountains, where human presence fades and silence reigns. It is in those moments that one might feel the weight of Mount Kaf, the subtle pressure of a world unseen. A sudden chill, a flicker in the air, a whisper with no source. Many dismiss it as imagination, yet the mystics insist these are the ripples of the unseen mountain that holds the worlds apart. To feel it is to know that reality is not as it seems, that just beyond the horizon, the unknown watches back. Before the creation of man, before the birth of our world as we know it, the universe was divided into layers, realms of light, shadow, and flame. The angels inhabited the upper spheres, created from pure light, obedient and flawless in their devotion. The Jinn were born from smokeless fire, beings of will and freedom, able to think, to build, and to choose between good and evil. For countless ages, they roamed their own world, a realm parallel to ours, invisible but ever-present, filled with mountains of fire and oceans of mist. They ruled the earth long before humanity, building empires of beauty and terror, until pride and rebellion brought about their downfall. When Allah created Adam from clay, a new chapter began. The command to bow was issued, and while the angels obeyed, one among the Jinn refused. Iblis, the proud one, burned with envy and defiance. His disobedience tore a wound between the realms, a rift that still bleeds into the world of men. As a result, the Jinn were cast into the hidden layers of existence, veiled behind the thresholds, guarded by angels, sealed by divine command. Mount Qaf became the boundary, the anchor that holds the unseen in place. It is said that from its base, gateways open unseen to the human eye, leading into the kingdoms of the Jinn, where light bends and time folds in ways we cannot understand. Some scriptures and ancient commentaries hint that Mount Qaf is not only a physical barrier but a spiritual one, the cosmic wall between obedience and rebellion, between divine order and chaos. It holds back the waves of the unseen, preventing them from overwhelming the world of men. But in moments of great darkness, when mankind forgets its creator, when evil spreads unchecked, the balance weakens. Strange occurrences follow possessions, whispers, shadows that move where light should reign. These are the echoes of the ancient war between the forces that dwell beyond Mount Qaf and those who guard it. Every myth, every ancient tale, every forbidden legend points to one truth: that our world is not alone. Beyond the mountains, beyond the deserts, beyond even the stars, lies a domain vast and hidden, where beings older than humanity still remember the first words of creation. Mount Qaf stands as the last frontier, a reminder that for all our knowledge, there remains a horizon we were never meant to cross. They say not all gates are made of wood or stone. Some are woven from silence, hidden in the folds of reality, waiting to open not with keys, but with fate. Around the unseen slopes of Mount Qaf, where the world thins and the known surrenders to the unknowable, there are said to be gateways, luminous thresholds between our world and the realms of the Jinn. These gates are not visible to the eye, but to the soul attuned to deeper truths. They appear in forgotten deserts, abandoned ruins, and even in the stillness of night places where time falters and space bends. Here, beyond reason, the veil becomes porous, and those who wander too far may find themselves standing before an entrance they were never meant to see. At each of these portals stand guardians, not human, not Jinn, not angel, but beings crafted solely for the purpose of keeping the balance. They are ancient, predating even the rebellion of Iblis, bound not by will but by command. Described in old manuscripts as radiant but terrifying, these guardians are known by no name and speak no language. Their presence alone is enough to fracture the mind of a man. It is they who decide what passes between the realms and what must be turned away. When the gates are stable, the world remains in harmony. But when they tremble, when the sins of mankind grow heavy, or when dark rituals disturb the fabric of the unseen, the gates can flicker open without warning. Throughout history, there have been rare accounts of individuals who claim to have crossed these gateways. Not sorcerers or charlatans, but pious mystics, seekers of hidden knowledge who were granted a moment of crossing either as a trial or a gift. Their words were cryptic upon return. They spoke of lands where color has no name, where the sky pulses with unseen energy, where the very air sings with memory. Some wept at what they saw. Others went silent forever. But all of them agreed on one truth, that beyond those gates lies a reality more complex, more terrifying, and more majestic than the world we know. And what lies beyond these gates? A realm vast and ancient, layered in kingdoms both beautiful and terrible. The world of the Jinn is not chaos, but a mirror of ours, distorted, magnified, and governed by different laws. There are cities of impossible geometry, towers that float in skies of gold, and forests that breathe. Here, the Jinn dwell in tribes and empires, from the noble to the monstrous. Each tribe has its own history, its own dialect, and its own way of interacting with humankind. The married are said to be among the strongest, often dwelling in deep waters, commanding storms and illusions. The Ifrit, fierce and cunning, inhabit the volcanic places, drawn to heat and conflict, often involved in ancient pacts and bloodlines. Then there are the silent shapeshifters known to move among humans, learning their ways, whispering into their hearts, blending seamlessly into crowds. And the Gilan desert dwellers, savage and merciless, lurking in the vast emptiness of sand and shadow, feeding on fear and isolation. These categories are but glimpses, for the Jinn are as diverse as mankind, perhaps more so. Some live solitary lives in caves or abandoned places. Others form courts and civilizations that have lasted longer than any human empire. It is said that in their world there are mosques and scriptures, scholars and rebels, believers and disbelievers. They were, after all, created with the same choice we were to believe or to reject, to build or to destroy. In Surah Al-Jinn, Allah recounts how some Jinn listened to the Quran and embraced its truth, while others turned away. This proves that guidance has reached them as it has reached us. But unlike mankind, the Jinn live longer, travel faster, and see more than we ever will. Their knowledge of the unseen once extended into the heavens until it was blocked by burning meteors after the coming of the final prophet. Since then, their access has been limited, their realm increasingly fractured. Still, their kingdoms endure unseen, vast, and ruled by codes unknown to man. There are stories, passed through generations, of those who encountered Jinn, royalty. Kings and queens, draped in light or shadow, who governed their people with wisdom or tyranny. Deals have been made, alliances forged, some beneficial, others damning. In times of great spiritual weakness, humans have been known to call upon the Jinn for power, knowledge, or revenge. But such bargains never end cleanly. For the Jinn demand a price, and their patience stretches far beyond ours. What seems like a gift today may become a curse that haunts generations. Yet, not all who interact with the Jinn seek corruption. There are those who were chosen, not by desire but by destiny. The lost travelers, the hidden prophets, the wanderers marked by fate. Some of them vanished from the human world, swallowed by mountains or deserts, only to return years later, unchanged by time but altered in spirit. These men and sometimes women spoke of messages carried through dreams, of being summoned into realms they did not seek. They described councils of Jinn debating over the state of humanity, lamenting the corruption that now pollutes the earth. Some Jinn, it is said, still long for guidance, still remember the ancient laws, and look to righteous humans as reminders of the covenant. Among these legendary figures, there are tales of prophets and saints who crossed into the world of the Jinn by divine permission, not to dominate, but to warn, to bring them the message that they, too, are accountable. The Quran confirms that the message of Islam was sent to all beings, human and Jinn alike. And in those sacred crossings, truth was planted in a land where deception often reigns. Those who returned from such missions bore marks, sometimes physical, sometimes spiritual. Their presence disturbed the air around them. Animals grew quiet, and the night itself seemed to listen when they spoke. They were not ordinary anymore, for they had glimpsed the machinery behind the veil. But not all who crossed came back. Some were never seen again, their fate unknown, their names remembered only in the prayers of loved ones and the writings of those who studied the unseen. In ancient manuscripts written in faded ink and locked away in private collections, there are mentions of paths that disappear under moonlight, of caves that hum with otherworldly energy, of voices calling from ruins where no man should walk. These are believed to be the remnants of crossings, physical traces left behind when the gates momentarily opened and took someone in. Even today, there are reports of disappearances in remote regions, from the mountain ranges of Central Asia to the endless sands of the Arabian Peninsula. Not all who go missing are taken by worldly means. Some vanish without tracks, without signs, without explanation. And those who return, if they do, speak of landscapes that do not match any map, of cities lit by floating orbs, of beings who speak without tongues. Psychologists call it delusion, but the faithful know better. The world is not what it seems. And Mount Kaf, with its hidden gates and watchers, stands as proof that we live not at the center of creation, but on its edge. Before the first human took a breath, before Adam opened his eyes to the light of existence, the unseen world was already in turmoil. There was a time when the Jinn roamed the earth freely, their kingdoms vast and thriving, their knowledge deep, their lifespans long. Created from smokeless fire, they were given will, intellect, and dominion over the lower world. For eons they ruled, building empires of flame and whisper, crafting wonders hidden from the eyes of men. But their pride grew unchecked. Some among them began to question the divine order. Among them was one who would change the course of creation, Iblis. Once a devout worshipper, Iblis rose among the ranks of the Jinn until he stood alongside the angels in the heavenly court. But when Allah announced the creation of Adam and commanded all to bow before the new being of clay, Iblis refused. "I am better than him," he declared. "You created me from fire and him from clay." That act of arrogance shattered the harmony of the unseen. Iblis was cast out, cursed until the day of judgment, but given a strange mercy, the ability to roam the earth and whisper into the hearts of men. With him, a faction of Jinn rebelled, forming an unseen army of darkness. And so began the war of the unseen. A war not fought with swords of steel, but with deception, seduction, and spiritual manipulation. The loyal Jinn, those who still remembered their covenant with Allah, stood in defiance against Iblis and his followers. Clashes erupted in the unseen layers of reality, battles that left scars across the veil, disturbances we now feel as hauntings, possessions, and unexplained fear. The ancient humans were not blind to these forces. The prophets, from the earliest messengers to the seal of the prophets, were sent with knowledge to protect their people, to teach them how to shield themselves with dhikr, with prayer, with light. Mount Kaf, in the midst of all this, became more than a mountain. It was a spiritual fortress, the final stronghold of balance. Its guardians were not only watchers of the gate, but defenders of equilibrium between light and darkness. From its unseen peaks, the commands of the Most High flowed into the realms below, anchoring the chaos with divine decree. But as mankind grew heedless, indulging in arrogance and sin, the veil weakened. The whispers of Iblis became louder, more seductive. The war of the unseen intensified not only in their world but in ours. Every generation since has been part of this war, whether they know it or not. Each soul is a battlefield. Each heart is a fortress to be defended or conquered. And while we busy ourselves with worldly distractions, the forces of the unseen continue their ancient struggle, waiting for the final hour when the trumpet will sound and all will be revealed. According to some of the earliest Islamic scholars and mystics, the day of judgment will not arrive quietly. The signs of the end will come like thunderclaps across the world, shaking mountains, splitting skies, and unraveling illusions. But what few speak of is the role Mount Kaf plays in these final days. In the prophecies of the end times, it is said that the barriers between the realms will break. The gates of Mount Kaf, long sealed by divine command, will tremble and open. The unseen will pour into the seen. Beings once confined to whispers and shadows will walk openly among mankind. Jinn of all kinds, believers and rebels alike, will take part in the unraveling of this world. Their kingdoms will fall just as ours will. Their kings will be judged just as ours will. The balance that has held for thousands of years will dissolve, and the truth will become undeniable. The Quran tells us that when the end arrives, the mountains will be like carded wool, drifting and dissolving. Imagine then the fate of Mount Kaf, a mountain not of stone, but of spiritual essence. When it collapses, so too will the veil that has shielded us from the full vision of creation. The final judgment will encompass not only humans, but the jinn, the angels, and every being that ever existed. The gates of Kaf will no longer separate, they will unite. All realms will converge before the throne of the Almighty, and every secret will be known. This convergence will be terrifying to those who lived in heedlessness, but a relief to those who believed without seeing. For the faithful, the unseen has always been a source of certainty, not fear. But when the unseen becomes seen, when belief is replaced by direct vision, the test ends and the reckoning begins. Yet for the mystics, those who walked a different path, Mount Kaf has always held another meaning. Not merely a boundary in the physical cosmos, but a symbol of the inner self. They teach that each soul carries within it a Mount Kaf, a hidden frontier, a spiritual mountain that stands between the ego and the divine. To climb it is not to journey through lands, but through layers of the self. The ascent begins with repentance, winds through the valleys of discipline and patience, and rises through the peaks of love and surrender. Along the way, the seeker must confront the illusions of this world, wealth, pride, lust, status, and cast them aside. Every step burns away a veil. Every trial strips the soul of its illusions. And at the summit, silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that comes when there is nothing left but the presence of God. The Sufis say that one who reaches this point does not return with stories of jinn or hidden gates, for they have seen the greater unseen. The reality of La ilaha illa Allah, there is no God but Allah, not just as a phrase, but as a living truth. These seekers describe the journey as terrifying and beautiful. Terrifying because the ego resists death. Beautiful because what is left behind is pure, unshackled light. Mount Kaf, in this understanding, is both the outer mystery and the inner ascent. It is the test of surrender, the burning of falsehood, the unveiling of the real. Few make this journey. Fewer still complete it. But those who do are never the same. They walk among us, but their hearts are anchored elsewhere. Their words carry a weight, their eyes hold a stillness. They have passed through their own Mount Kaf, and on the other side, they found not jinn or flame, but the face of the one they had been seeking all along. In our modern world of glowing screens, scientific certainties, and endless distractions, we often believe the age of wonder is behind us. Satellites map the surface of every continent, submarines dive into the ocean's abyss, and we have measured the stars across galaxies. But still, the stories persist. Not in myth alone, but whispered in the winds of the empty deserts, hidden in the corners of villages untouched by concrete, and written between the lines of ancient texts. The unseen world, the realm that lies just past the veil, has not disappeared. It simply no longer needs to prove itself to those who have closed their hearts. And yet, for those who still feel its presence, there are signs. Strange dreams that repeat, showing symbols and places unknown. Whispers in empty rooms, shadows that seem to move against the light, the undeniable sensation that you are not alone, even in solitude. In remote parts of the world, people speak of valleys where compasses fail, where technology shuts down, and where travelers disappear for days, only to return confused, changed, or never return at all. Villagers, shepherds, and wanderers tell stories not with wide eyes, but with quiet certainty, tales of doors that appear between trees, of voices that lure at twilight, of ruins where time flows differently. Some speak of ancient stones that glow faintly before fading, marking unseen passageways that align with stars no longer visible in our skies. There are men and women, not mystics, not prophets, not seekers, just ordinary people who've encountered things that defy explanation. Truck drivers on remote roads who saw figures crossing highways only to vanish before their eyes. Children who speak of companions that no one else can see. Campers who hear voices praying in foreign tongues echoing across the canyons with no source. These are not simply coincidences, nor tricks of the mind. They are disturbances, ripples caused when the veil is brushed, when the gates of Mount Kaf flutter, just for a moment. In spiritual gatherings, some speak of waking visions, of being pulled into a realm where the sky burns deep blue and gold, and the landscape stretches into infinity with no sun, but endless light. Others speak of being frozen in place, unable to move or speak, while something not evil, not kind, simply observing watches from just beyond. Imams and scholars of sincerity warn against seeking contact, remind the people that the Jinn are not entertainment, and that the unseen is not a playground for the curious. But they also admit, with grave honesty, that such experiences happen and that the world contains far more than it reveals. The gates that lead beyond our world are not made for science to measure. They do not respond to machines, or equations, or wires. They are woven into the balance between belief and disbelief, purity and corruption. In places where people forget their Lord, where sin becomes open and shameless, the veil grows thin. But equally so, in places of immense worship, true, sincere worship, the veil can lift, not in warning but in mercy. In the depths of sujood, when a servant is closest to his Creator, the soul may touch something beyond the boundaries of sight. There are those who claim to be drawn to Mount Kaf not by map or compass, but by dreams. Recurring dreams of a mountain so vast its summit pierces the clouds, so radiant that its light can be felt even while sleeping. In these dreams, some hear ancient voices calling them by names they do not know but feel are theirs. Some wake with the feeling that they were being watched, not with malice, but with solemn purpose. Are these mere hallucinations? Or are they invitations? Perhaps Mount Kaf was never meant to be reached by footsteps. Perhaps it waits not in geography, but in the folds of fate, revealing itself only to those chosen or fated to encounter it. A place that exists between the beats of the heart, between one breath and the next, where the world softens and the unseen sharpens. A gate that opens only in moments of extreme spiritual sensitivity, whether in fear, devotion, or clarity. But if Mount Kaf truly lies beyond the reach of ordinary paths, what then is its purpose? Why has it remained in scripture, in story, in soul memory, for centuries across cultures and continents? The answer, perhaps, lies not in the mountain itself, but in what it represents. For Mount Kaf is not only the border of our world, it is the reminder that we are not alone, that our lives, brief, busy, distracted, are being lived in the shadow of something much greater, more ancient, more profound. And that brings us to the final truth. The world, for all its beauty and terror, is not the ultimate destination. We were never meant to stay here forever. Our existence is a journey, a path of choices, tests, and reminders. And Mount Kaf, whether it exists in the outer world or within the soul, is one of those reminders. A whisper that says, look deeper. Go further. Do not be content with what you can. See, for what is unseen holds your true story. For the mystics, Mount Kaf has always been a destination not of distance, but of ascension. Not climbed with legs, but with spirit. It is the final trial, the mountain of the self, of ego, of falsehoods. The journey to its summit is long and painful. It requires one to confront every lie told to the heart, every attachment formed with this fleeting world. You climb with prayer, you stumble through sincerity, you rise through remembrance. With every step, a veil falls. With every hardship, a door opens. Until finally, at the peak, there is nothing left of you but the truth. What lies beyond Mount Kaf is not fantasy or fable. It is reality. The true reality untouched by illusion, unchained from ego. A realm where time bends to the will of the most merciful. Where beings of light, fire, and clay stand equally humbled before their Lord. Where everything that was hidden is made known. In this place, names have weight, intentions shine brighter than actions, and every soul is seen for what it truly is. Some say that when death comes, it is not an end, but an entry. That the soul crosses a threshold, perhaps even one of the gates of Kaf, and steps into the full spectrum of existence. The soul meets the truth it spent a lifetime seeking or avoiding. And perhaps in that moment, we will all stand upon our own Mount Kaf, gazing out across the eternity we spent so long ignoring. So reflect, not out of fear, but out of hope. For the one who created the veil can lift it. The one who placed Mount Kaf as a guardian can invite you beyond it. And the one who formed the unseen can open it to those who seek him sincerely. Mount Kaf remains where it always has, at the edge of sight, at the center of mystery, at the Kaf, heart of the believer.